Hey agents, it's Dispatch. The devs are planning some changes to rifles in the Project Resolve update. The general community response has been eye-rolling at best and frothing at the mouth at worst. Most agree that the buffs will have little effect on the viability of rifles, but I'm actually with the devs on this one, and let me explain why. Alright agents, like all my videos, we're going to take a hard look at the problems with rifles and make sure we dig deep before we try to solve them. Maybe I was raised a hardcore contrarian, or maybe I'm just lacking common sense. Wait till the end of the video before you declare that I've gone rogue, agents. You'll see the math, and the math will set you free. Rifles have numerous problems in the current state of the game that decrease their viability compared to other options. Rifles have a low DPS, and the second attribute for rifles is also pretty mediocre, compounding the problem. It should be changed to something more interesting. Even at 60% critical hit chance with no critical hit damage, we're looking at a multiplicative average bullet damage increase of 10.8%. And at 100% critical hit damage, we're getting a 6.8% multiplicative increase. It experiences diminishing multiplicative returns as we increase our critical hit damage on our build. Not to mention, rifles have high weapon damage with relatively low hits to kill, so the additional RNG based damage is less likely to have an impact. We'll talk more about this DPS problem later. The next issue is that rifles have no gear set synergy like most other weapon types. Even MMRs have 2 gear sets, but rifles are just left with brand set builds, which are woefully underpowered right now. Next, rifles have a handling issue. They have high horizontal recoil. The only exceptions to this are the Merciless, UIC, Classic M1A, and M16. The Merciless and M16 recoil are completely vertical, and the UIC is just extremely stable at base. But these three options are hampered by an extremely poor DPS. The classic M1A has a low enough rate of fire that the spread and recoil pretty much reset before the next bullet, with decent DPS, and this is why it has been the go-to rifle for years. Most of the other rifles are so unstable that they're headache-inducing. The fourth issue is, with these high fire rates and the sponginess of enemies, we've got hundreds of clicks that we're clicking as fast as we possibly can just to clear an activity. My hands get tired running rifles. Not only that, but clicking your mouse this fast, as I discovered in testing, can throw off your aim. To eliminate this from my testing, I actually bound my fire weapon key to my keyboard. Nobody wants to use a weapon that risks developing carpal tunnel. The final issue is that rifles don't have consistent rate of fire. I'm not sure if this is a shot buffer issue, a lag issue, a frame rate issue, or the fact that most rifle fire rates are higher than the average person can consistently click. Either way, often while using rifles I'll find that I get hitches where the weapon randomly stops firing for a millisecond or two, and the fire rate isn't consistent. I don't know how to fix this without looking at the code, so that will have to be left to the devs. Alright agents, let's see how we can knock out these issues. First, in my opinion, I'd change the second attribute to damage to armor. Shotguns can have damage to health or critical hit damage or something else. They already have a pretty high DPS. Why would this be a good change? Besides it making more sense in a real world context, it would also help with rifle hybrids. Assuming damage to armor's impact on status and explosives isn't a bug, these types of builds should typically be played further from the enemy, where you can't make really good use of a shotgun. Rifles can play at this range, so that encourages more build synergy and gives rifles another boost to their usefulness. Now for the next problem, DPS. The obvious answer is to increase the damage of rifles. As we can see, the mag DPS of rifles varies wildly. You would also think that their sustained DPS would be really good because they can fire so much longer than ARs, but we find that this isn't a huge factor. Most of the higher burst DPS rifles have smaller magazines, so that balances out the sustained DPS numbers. The rifles with actual competitive sustained DPS numbers have crazy recoil and high fire rates like the UMP, Lavoa, M4, M1 CQB, and ACR. These numbers aren't including the crit damage, as that changes drastically depending on the build, but it does include putting damage to targets out of cover as the third attribute. The UIC has abysmal DPS, but is pretty much completely accurate and stable without any mod support. Of course, the actual DPS on your build will be higher than this base DPS, but for the sake of comparison, the relative DPS of these compared to ARs will be much lower for the high rate of fire rifles, because of the recoil that we'll show later. The base mag DPS of the ARs on the sheet don't include the health damage bonus, and they're still outclassing the rifles by a sizable margin. The SMGs even more so, but that's a topic for another day. The ARs range from about 463,000 to 744,000. The base mag DPS of the rifles range from 474 to 981,000. with most sitting in the upper 500,000 to mid 600,000 territory. So the majority of rifles, the more controllable ones, are way below ARs, and they fall farther behind without any gear set or second attribute support. The SIG 716 is a reasonably manageable rifle with a medium rate of fire. Let's balance this with, say, the P416, which is a middle of the pack AR with fairly manageable recoil. The P416 mag DPS is 673,000. Currently, the SIG mag DPS is 590,000. So we're bumping that up by about 83,000. This is a 14% damage increase required to achieve the same mag DPS. This pushes the sustained DPS higher than that of the P416, but that's where the other problems we're going to tackle come into play. With Project Resolve, the SIG was getting about a 25% weapon damage buff, and I think this is fantastic to put it on par. Of course, the P416 was getting a rate of fire increase, and we still got the other problems, but this is absolutely on the right track. On to the next solution. I agree with the community that rifles need a gear set. Repurposing one of the two MMR gear sets would be ideal in my opinion, that being the Aces and Eights or Hotshot gear set. Either one would work. Heck, make them both work for MMRs and rifles. For the sake of this video, let's change Aces and Eights to work for rifles and MMRs and give it a buff so it's actually relevant in the current meta. From now on, I'll just call it Aces to make it easy for myself. For the sake of providing some actual math, let's roughly balance it with Strikers. Strikers has a 65% amplified damage and 15% rate of fire boost, both of which are multiplicative with our DPS. With the backpack, we're looking at 100%. Aces, if we hit all headshots, takes 3 shots to proc the buff, and then it's a 30% damage boost that can be re-procced when the buff is active. However, the number of shots that the buff will be active for is dependent on RNG. Now, just assuming we can keep both Striker and Aces procced, 30% to 65% is a massive discrepancy. We're not even taking into account the set's MMR and headshot damage bonuses, which aren't even on par with brand bonuses. With the 4 lost brand bonuses, we could get just as much with 1-piece Walker, 2-piece Araldi, and 1-piece Providence. We'd also have 4 minor attributes, or an extra 40% headshot damage. So even compared to brand bonuses, we got a huge problem with Ace's damage. The bonuses need to change to damage to armor or something interesting for the 2-piece bonus. This would give more options, maybe even for a ninja build. Goodness knows that backpack needs some help. The 3-piece bonus should be a high amount of MMR and rifle damage, maybe 20 or even 25%. Then for the talent, if the damage is going to continue to be RMG based, we need at least 50% amplified damage from the base, with the chest bumping that up to 80 or 100%. Maybe I'm crazy, but this set is super underpowered right now. So the picture for rifles is looking better, but now we come to the final issue, and the final change that I would make to rifles. I know most players are campaigning for a reduction recoil. This would certainly reduce the headache-inducing shaking of the screen and increase players' hit chance. However, this is not the right move in my opinion. Instead, the devs need to continue to buff the damage. I know what you're thinking. Buffing the damage doesn't change the core issue. But that's where you're wrong. And here's why. The recoil of every rifle can be reduced and almost eliminated through two ways: stability attributes, or utilizing what I call the reset rate of fire. First, let's tackle the reset rate of fire. Every rifle is mostly controllable and almost 100% accurate if you fire at a rate that allows the recoil to reset after each shot, which I call the reset rate of fire. Obviously, if you're firing slower, you are also reducing your DPS. The remedy for this is to increase the damage to help roughly equalize this DPS. This also has the added benefit of reducing the risk of carpal tunnel, or RSI, because we're no longer spam firing as fast as we can. Now let's talk about stability. Stability attributes on rifles do reduce the horizontal and vertical recoil, unlike ARs that only benefit from a vertical recoil reduction. Therefore, we already have the ability to get comparable handling to ARs in the classic M1A. The problem is less that poor handling exists, and more so that it takes a lot of handling attributes, which sacrifices damage. And of course, sacrificing damage reduces our DPS. Therefore, buffing the damage of rifles allows the player a lot of choice. Should I fire slower or build for weapon handling and spam fire? Or even, should I spam fire and get extremely close range so the handling doesn't matter as much? If a particular agent is better at controlling vertical recoil, maybe they could even find a more optimal balance, and this adds a skill gap for players to try to master. In the background, you see my test, spam firing of every weapon except the Urban MDR and Ravenous against a wall to see the shot pattern. Once I tested spam firing every weapon, I tried finding the reset rate of fire on a couple of weapons that were harder to control. I also showed the effect of stability attributes. As you can see, almost every weapon with higher rate of fire has drastically higher recoil, with the horizontal recoil being absolutely bonkers with some, such as the USC 45 and the lightweight M4. Some of the more controllable rifles actually look very good as far as shot pattern goes against a wall. If these were buffed to have a decent base DPS, they might actually be competitive without balancing around the reset DPS. However, I think they would still run into a perception problem when firing at these low fire rates on a semi-auto rifle. You really feel every single miss. With automatic weapons, you're already shooting a string of bullets, and by the time your brain has processed that you've missed, you've already hit a couple of other shots. The damage of each rifle would have to be tuned based on its actual controllability at the reset rate of fire. I would do some testing around this, but I don't think I can use macros without breaking the terms of service or getting banned as a cheater, so I think I'll leave it up to the devs who have access to this kind of data behind the scenes. So all in all, we can see that the handling of rifles isn't really the problem. You can build for a very accurate rifle, you just need to invest in handling attributes or reduce your rate of fire, which means you need more damage. So that's the solution. More damage at base, more damage in the secondary attribute, and more damage through a gear set. These are the changes that I believe need to be made to make rifles viable. The devs are on the right track, they just aren't quite there yet. Alright agents, now it's time for you to tell me what you think. Open up a discussion in the comments and let's guide the devs to making the right changes. Hit the sub button because it's free and it helps me, and I like that. And hit that thumbs up. Thanks for learning with me agents. Until next time, this has been Dispatch. Take care out there.